Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how the globalist cabal moves their ghouls and goons around into one cozy job to the next, so they can commit their acts of destruction in one public service department, and then they just move them around to another one, interstate or even internationally. And I've noticed this almost a while ago, but particularly recently, that I think there's been an uptick since 2020 or 2021, I guess, where there's a select group of destructos that are moved around into various areas. It can be a public service department, it can be in a regional government or a local council or a quango or some sort of a think tank or whatever. But they're moved around. Their sole job is to commit various acts of organizational and social destruction. And then just as they're about to sort of be found out and maybe hauled before some sort of committee, they abruptly resign. But instead of being sort of cast out in some sort of state of disgrace and being unemployable, as would happen to any normal real person in the real world, they're instead moved around to commit this act of destruction elsewhere. And when I say act of destruction, I'm talking about really getting rid of white people and putting in insane programs of equity and so on. So their job is to really, in effect, destroy the effectiveness of any institution or government department and turn the thing completely over to affirmative action and quotas and the like. Some of these people aren't necessarily ideological fanatics, although you'd think they'd do it. They're just people that would at best be pushing a broom somewhere, who've been elevated to a very senior role and paid very handsomely for it, and so really they're doing the bidding of the people behind the curtain. So that's what's going on. Now, I'll just looking at one case here. Here's an affirmative action hire, and listening to him talk. There's a couple of things online about. He sounds like he's got an IQ about 80. And he was suddenly plonked into one quite large government department in California, and immediately there he began instituting the most stringent affirmative action policies and effectively getting rid of all the competent white people and replacing them with incompetent minorities, as they call it. So now the standards this was related to construction here. The standards fell. There was all sorts of corruption, people being bribed. Construction companies were bribing these people with some pretty serious money to look the other way on this and sign off on that and the like. So it not only sort of went from being an efficient, well-operating, well-functioning government department that was doing good work for the people, making sure that high quality work was done, there was no corruption, that it was all based on merit and that sort of thing. But the merit all disappeared, and it disappeared at once. It didn't just disappear in the sort of people that were hired and putting unqualified black and brown people into the roles, which they definitely did that. They get rid of the white people was really the first step to this, and doing things like putting acts of deliberate and premeditated humiliation, putting utterly incompetent black and brown people in charge of very competent white people, and making sure that they were being dragged into meetings and screamed and shouted at in sundry and various acts of humiliation till the white people thought, I'm not pulling up with this, and got out. And so they were able to change the whole place into being one of some petty little spiteful, school children running around in circles type thing. But because these people are so inept and so on, they're very open to corruption. Now, some of the corruption comes because these people are so inept, it takes 10 times longer to do anything. And so exasperated construction companies think, how can we sort of get out of this loop of incompetence? Why don't we just bribe the motherfucker? And there's that sort of stuff. But also it's the construction company thinks, well, that, these safeguards that we have to institute, or this quality of building material, or these solid foundations for the block of apartments, that's quite expensive to do. We can save ourselves millions of dollars if we can just get this useless, incompetent, corrupt inspector to sign off on this poor quality foundation for the block of apartments. So we'll sling them $20,000 and then problem solved, rather than we save $1 million on the construction costs. So hey, money well spent. So there's that sort of thing going on as well. So this particular guy was in charge of all that. Again, nominally in charge. It was people behind the curtain who were getting to do the stuff, but he was considered useful for them. He was an affirmative action. He was a black guy. He looked pretty decent in a sharp suit, and he looked the part at least. And because he was so stupid, he hardly seen anything. So he kind of wasn't making that many mistakes, in interviews and that sort of stuff. So anyway, they just as there was a big inquiry coming on about all the corruption and the incompetence and the aptitude, so he abruptly resigns. And you think that would have been the end of him, but no. Then he reappears as being chief executive of an airport. An airport somewhere else in the United States, and shoehorned straight in. And you couldn't imagine someone who would be less qualified, but then he's given the gig as that, very well paid, and does exactly the same thing. Get rid of all the competent white people, replace them with affirmative action flunkies and so on. Again, the same thing occurs. Flunkies and so on. Again, the same thing occurs. There's an inquiry into the corruption and the aptitude. He abruptly resigns and is again hired straight into another role somewhere up in the northeast of the United States. Now, when I saw that pattern there, I went and looked at a few other appointments that were, like things like the Biden administration are trying to appoint obviously unqualified people into different roles. And you see the same thing, the activism or the activism definitely, but you also see how much they fucked up. They've left a trail of destruction behind them. Obviously, destruction of the globalists one. All the destructions, if you will, in the plural and in the aggregate, they're all there to support the globalist project. Get rid of white people, appoint incompetent affirmative action people into the roles. Facilitate corruption and make sure that the people are getting a much less. And it's a way of denigrating Western society, undermining all our confidence in all our institutions and the public service bodies and so on, and turning them into an incompetent, useless, pathetic fucking rabble. And this is the globalist shtick. This is how the globalists are undermining our confidence and faith in our society. We look around us and nothing works, nothing functions, everything's gone to shit. So what's the point of fighting back against the globalists? There's nothing left to protect, nothing worthwhile, nothing worth fighting for. And that's really the globalist objective here. And that's what these people are being done. They're being moved around and for the sole purpose of destroying our institutions. And there's actually an army of them that are being deliberately moved back and forth and around all over the place. And if they do find themselves in an unemployed sort of spot in the meantime, they're then given well-paid consulting jobs at NGOs and think tanks and the like. So they're well looked after until they're ready for the next assignment of destruction. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.